Welcome everyone, Farmer Cop here. This is going to be a quick video to just talk about some of the differences between long grain rice and wet or regular rice. Whenever I say wet rice, I mean regular rice or just plain rice, so just be aware of that. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive right into it. First things first, when you're going to go plant long grain rice or wet rice, they both require you to place down a rice field, which is going to be found in the build mode under factories, and then scroll over to cultivation. All you have to do to place this down is just select some various points, and you can do kind of any whatever crazy shape you'd like to. And when you're done, you can just right click, and then all of a sudden you have yourself a rice field. When it comes to planting, wet rice requires you to use a specialized Iseki rice transplanter, and it requires the field to be flooded first, which all you have to do is go up to the pump at the end of the field where the water can come out of, and you just got to set it up from there. Easy peasy. And then all you have to do is go out and start planting on it. Really easy to do. When it comes to long grain rice, all you have to do is use a regular seeder to go ahead and plant it. And I should also note as well at this point, this is not a comprehensive guide to long grain rice or wet rice. If you'd like to check those out, I do have those out on the channel. I will put links to both those in the description for you. But when it comes to long grain rice, all you got to do is head out there with the regular seeder, and you have to start planting right there. Just make sure you're inside the rice fields. There we go. Now, when it comes to crop care, both wet and long grain rice only require one fertilizer state, and weeds will not appear, so you don't have to worry about it. When it comes to liming, the rice fields you place down are pre-limed, so they'll be good for 3 harvests. Then after every 3rd harvest, you'll have to place down some more lime before you start growing some rice on it, just to make sure you get the max yield, unless you have that, of course, turned off. So just be aware of that. Now, if you were using the rice transplanter or or a planter for the regular rice over there, if you put fertilizer in your planter, then you won't have to worry about fertilizer at all. The rice transplanter does take fertilizer, and there are a lot of different seeders out there that take fertilizer as well to make it a little bit easier for you. But yeah, so that's what you can do in terms of that. And again, don't panic if it says only 50% fertilized. It only needs 1 fertilizer state, so you're good to go if it says that. Now, when it comes to growing both long grain rice and wet rice, you have to go to the pump each day, and you have to go ahead and flood it. So that'll be required for both of them. It's not required for the entire time, the entire duration of their growing, but it is required most of the days that they're growing. So just go up to the pump every day, and again, it'll automatically set it to whatever it needs to be set. If you go in here and it won't let you flood the field, that means that nothing is required. Otherwise, if you don't do that, little splotches of rice will die, and you will lose some yield on your field. So make sure that you're caring for them by doing that on a regular basis. That way they are all good to go. So that's one important thing to do there. Another thing to note as well is it takes long grain rice about 5 months to grow, as opposed to wet rice only takes 4 months to grow. So seasons on, you can only grow rice once a year, no matter what kind, whether you're doing long grain or wet rice. If you have seasons turned off and you're not playing with them, you can do wet rice 3 times a year and long grain rice twice a year based on how long it takes them to grow. So just be aware of that. And I should also note as well with that rice does not regrow on its own. You're going to have to replant it every time. So even if you're trying to get multiple harvests in a year, you're going to have to replant it multiple times during that year. Now, when it comes to harvesting, you do have to use a specialized harvester on the wet rice, this little Iseki guy here, which does sound like it's going to be more expensive. However, this guy only runs you about $100,000, so it's actually not too bad for a dedicated harvester. Long grain rice, on the other hand, only requires just a regular grain harvester or grain header style setup here like you have. So anything you do for like your wheat or barley or oats, anything like that, just a regular grain header, and this harvester right here, or another harvester that can do just your regular grain style crop. So nothing terribly special there. Now, when it comes to yield, you are going to get 30 to 40% less off of your wet rice field per hectare, which means your long grain rice is going to yield you, again, 30 to 40% more than your wet rice. However, when it comes to the sell price, that ends up making it a lot more worth it. So when it comes to selling, your wet rice is worth almost twice as much as the long grain rice. So even though you're getting more off of the long grain rice field, you're going to get about 30 to 40% more. You're still not going to make as much per hectare compared to your wet rice because of the sell price difference. And finally, when it comes to productions and what to do with, obviously, wet rice or long grain rice, they both have very similar productions. You can make either rice flour, rice bags, or boxes, depending on long grain or wet rice rolls, and rice oil. So you have a few different productions, and you're not going to really get slowed down too much depending on what rice you're doing. So whether you're doing long grain rice or wet rice, there are quite a few different productions out there for you to do. But that's what I got for you. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this quick video to give you some insight into what the differences between long grain and wet rice are.